Oren is a business development leader with 15 plus years in gaming, ad tech, AI, and blockchain. He's co-founded VC-backed ventures and scaled up top-grossing mobile games. And his expertise lies in live ops, monetization, and using emerging tech to boost player engagement. And with that, the mic is yours, sir. Over to you.
Thanks. Just happy to be here. Just with I must preference that we're still in stealth mode. So hopefully I have enough to talk about for 10 minutes. But grateful to be here, grateful to be part of the community. So thank you guys, and thank you, Tintash. So I really appreciate you guys' support and sort of reaching out to me even from the beginning before you had a Slack channel to ask me about what I thought might be valuable. I'm sure you asked a couple other people too. So thank you for that. So hi, I'm Oren, Chief Evil Officer at Evil Incorporated. We had very humble beginnings. I was at a previous studio. We released a title actually last year to compete with Brawl Stars of all games, and I ended up deciding to start my fourth studio in 5 years. And at the time, I was still a very heavy player of Clash Royale, and I had a few friends that were working in Agentic AI and creating sort of these agents that sort of played games for you, but for play to earn. And I'm very jaded when it comes to Web3 now, and I came up with the brilliant idea of, wouldn't it be great to have sort of a guardian angel in Clash Royale that was there sort of grinding my quest when I was away from keyboard or AFK. And if a lot of folks are not familiar with Clash Royale, it's a very grindy game. It's a sort of a card game / MOBA where you sort of place these cards in the arena. But if you put a significant amount of time in the game, it can get kind of grindy, which is basically the term for, playing something that's just like the same sort of gameplay over and over and over again, just to progress a little bit in the main meta game. And I sort of, grew that idea from, what if, I didn't just have this guardian angel in my game? What if this guardian angel was also in other people's games? And initially, I wasn't so cocky to think that, oh, this is just a genius idea. I was like, maybe I'm the only person that wants to have this. So I went and started talking to a lot of players who were whales in a lot of other games about this concept of sort of never grind again, where you sort of have this little buddy that helps you out in the games that you love and play today. And as I talked to more and more players, I started to discover that, okay, maybe I'm not the only person that wants something like this. So how possibly was I going to come up with the technology for something like this? So I, pitched this to my friend who was lead AI architect at Intel. He had his initial doubts, but he's co-founded previous studios with me before and has always supported me. So I brought him on, and I pitched it to a couple of the folks at my previous studio, Snack Club. Brought them on as well, and the idea became more than just an idea. We started talking to studios like Supercell, Fun Plus, Craftston, and just understanding, well, maybe this is not just something that could be really beneficial to players, but something that would also be beneficial to studios. Because previously, farming and botting is something that violates TOS, or terms of service, for most free-to-play games, if people are not familiar with that. And the reason why is because farming and botting allows players to sort of earn this in-game currency for free, where previously you would usually need to pay in-app currency for it. So, having a terms of service that prevents farming and botting is just a no-brainer from a studio standpoint. And I know this as well because I previously worked at studios like FunPlus. But players are nefarious. At the end of the day, they will always find a way to hack your game and find a loophole. So a lot of very successful games, all the way back to World of Warcraft, started to realize that they've had players who, regardless of the terms of service, have found loopholes or ways around it. And started, farming and buying the accounts anyways. Why is this relevant to Evil Incorporated? Well, I came up with this clever way where we will have something that enables players, regardless of their technical expertise, to have access to farming and barding, but at sort of the approval of the studios. So basically, we sort of understand that farming and botting is a behavior that's never going to go away. But now we're sort of positioning it as, well, studios know it's not going to go away. Do they want to make money from it? Do they want to go from banning players who are farming and botting their accounts to considering actually making money and keeping players and giving them an option for players to spend money from that are previously farming and buying the account? So it's sort of a very new concept, but so far we've had a lot of positive feedback from studios. We're currently, in the midst of, talking to more and more studios and partnering with more and more studios about this. But it's something that is really exciting because it creates revenue for something that has only been a negative for studios, where previously studios have only been losing money from players farming and buying their accounts, to now potentially studios can make money from players farming and buying accounts. And it's a very sort of futuristic kind of thing. But we believe that sort of this will be the future of farming and botting, where previously it was something that is in the black market. It was something that studios were really against, but now, I think in the future it's something that studios will be more accepting of, because we're giving the control of sort of this technology to the studios. And how we do that is basically when we work with studios who partner with us, they basically get revenue on every single player that subscribes to this service. So you can imagine this as something as simple as, previously studios, we would send an email to players, and we probably even, like, sometimes we're very lazy. We don't even send an email to a player notifying them that they have an opportunity to make a change before we ban them. If we find that a player is farming or buying an account, we just give them a permanent ban. But sometimes if they're been playing the game for a long time, we send them an email as a studio saying, hey, we found your account is a farm or a bot. We give them a certain number of time to stop doing that. If they don't, we permanently ban them. But now, as a studio, there's an option to actually provide a player with some kind of email where, hey, we found that you're farming or botting. You can either sign up to Evil Incorporated, or within a period of how many days, you'll get permanent banned. And now I think it's can be something that's a viable option for players to sort of transition to this new reality. But yeah, it's a very new concept. We're still very early. We started Evil Incorporated just a few months ago. So there's a lot of learnings that we're having with our conversations with studios. There's other kinds of things they want to do with our agentic technology, other than sort of giving them revenue from previously this nefarious behavior. But again, a lot of that stuff is still we haven't announced yet, so I can't go into too many of those details just yet.
Okay, thank you so much. And with that, we can open up to the Q&A and have some fun.
Happy to take your questions.
Oren, hey, I have a question for you.
Oh, hey, man.
How does your AI work?
Great question. We're still really early in the development of it. The company itself is just a few months old, but the MVP that we're currently building, it sort of acts similar to sort of like Gemini 2.0, where it takes screenshots as the player is playing your game. And based upon its screenshots, it takes that and it trains its agent on those screenshots, and it just mimics that behavior. So I think Claude as well has a version of this where they have a different use case. And basically, Claude, if you guys are not familiar with Claude, Claude's just another company that's similar to Google. The product similar to Google, where they now have a version of it where you activate Claude and it can basically watch you go to your YouTube channel, produce certain content, certain videos, and then after you do that, Claude basically does that for you, and it does that from the browser. And for us, I just like to look at it as this is just a different use case. The technology is exactly the same, just different use case. And the reason why we're doing this use case is, like I mentioned, I think this is something that would be very beneficial to players and very beneficial to studios. And yeah, we're still learning, Matt, how studios are going to want to utilize it, other than just unlocking this new revenue that hasn't been unlocked before, because previously a lot of this money has been going to black market services for AI farming. But I think as studios get more and more control over players that are using AI, I think they'll want more and more control over how AI is being used throughout the entire company. So I think what you're saying right now, maybe at your studio and at a lot of studios, is that, for example, Supercell is starting an AI innovation lab specifically, for creating services for their players. And obviously, Supercell has the whole thing is that they try to improve player experience. But I see this as, at least the way we're positioning it, as yes, I see it definitely as something improving the player experience. But you also need to be really careful. You have to make sure you don't change the player experience as well. So it changes it just enough and it helps it just enough where it does improve the player experience, but you also have to be really careful where you balance it and make sure it doesn't affect the player experience significantly. So I think that's a concern that a lot of studios are going to have, as we scale this up.
That's a good question, Oren. So does this technology?
Thank you, Matt. By the way, thank you, Matt, for your question.
Yeah. Just one quick question, Oren. Does this technology need to be trained for each individual game, or is it like improvise and sort of train as you continue to play any type of game?
Yes. So important question. Yes. So this is for each individual game. Every game is different. So you can imagine, as technology-wise, we'll have LLM for every game. So every game that we partner with is going to be very important, because we're not going to have sort of a one sort of one product to rule them all, because every game will need to have its own sort of training period where we ourselves will also need to train in that game before something like that can be implemented. So it's not something that we can train once and implement for every game. And I think that's an important distinction, because as you can imagine, it can get really costly. If we try to have like one technology that can be able to use for every game. First of all, I think it might be impossible. Second of all, it'll be extremely costly.
Right. Yeah, I do have a
question,
few more
Oren.
questions coming up in my mind, but I think we should ask. Yeah, Ahmed, go ahead.
Yeah, I do have a quick question. Would this not incentivize everyone to use the botting service, like even normal players, because they will start to fall behind? And that's
Great
what I'm.
question. Great question. And that's why we're trying to keep focused on catering to players who are already farming and buying their accounts. Yes, I do think there's a risk that that in like there will be players who have never considered farming and buying their accounts before want to now farm and buy their accounts. But for me, I don't think it's that big of a risk, because for right now, players who are farming and buying their accounts, there's no positive effect for studios. So I think the positive effect that we're going to be creating from turning players who normally would be a net negative for studios to a net positive would more than basically cover any additional players that may have never farmed a part of their accounts, to having them now farming and buying their accounts. Because again, that's just more revenue to the studio. Yes, it probably would have effect on the game economy, because now players that maybe would be only doing impulse buys are now signing up to a subscription. But I think in the long run, it would be more beneficial, because it would be a subscription. So players who maybe have done impulse in-app purchases previously, that those are very hard to predict. As someone who's worked in live ops at studios with games that have made $10 to $15 million a month, impulse buys are great until you don't get them anymore, right? And a very small percentage of players do impulse buys. So even if those players end up subscribing to this service, I think studios at the end of the day would prefer consistent sustainable revenue over like impulse in-app purchases, if that makes sense.
So I think at that point, if we're just trying to bring back revenue essentially to the studio, right? If we simply introduce like a subscription that just gives you the game items, so you don't need to have a farming or botting account essentially, and just bypass this whole layer in which we're using AI to essentially just farm the account and just directly provide value there as a paid.
Sure.
Wouldn't that be an easier solution to this problem?
Sure. And that's why, for us, it's going to be more important in regards to us serving as sort of like an AI modeling company than just a company that comes up with new ways to create revenue. Because as a studio, they have more than enough resources to just release a subscription that does it, or just gives away the items themselves. We see us more as an AI solution where they have players, like maybe a studio doesn't have players who are farming and buying that account. I don't see a studio like that would be a good potential customer for us. So yeah, it just depends on the studio. So if the studio doesn't have any players or has never kicked a player from ever farming a bonding account, then it probably wouldn't be a good fit for us, if that makes sense, because we're more of a solution for a studio that has players who are farming and bonding accounts. Does that make sense?
I would say it's an interesting approach. Yes.
Yeah. And like from the outside looking in, and apologies if I get this wrong, it is not about like monetizing a large chunk of the player base. Sure, studio could offer all the items as a subscription, but then you also get sort of labeled as like a pay to win game. So this is trying to like monetize just a very small segment of leaking
Right.
revenue that would not have been caught otherwise, while trying to maintain everything else in the same veneer, right? But yeah.
Right. Even for pay to win games, it's like the average I think is around 0.01% of your players. Like even for successful titles, like the game I managed, Guns of Glory. It's a very small percentage that account for all your revenue. So, if those switch to a subscription, I don't think that would be too big of an issue. And again, for me, like I mentioned, what really matters is that if studios already have players who are farming and bonding accounts, if they've, how many players have they banned due to farming and bonding? That's more of, sort of how we determine if they would be a good fit as a customer or not. Because honestly, if a studio wants to give away more items for the players because they see the players are grinding too much, that's more of a game design studio thing. It's not something that we would be involved with. But for us, I guess we are making a pretty big assumption here, right? We're making the assumption that farming and botting is something that's never going to go away, and that maybe it doesn't affect all studios, but it affects a good portion of studios. And I don't think we need to work with every studio. There are some games that might not be a good fit for this, right? Yeah, so it's just
I think it's a
depends on the
very
studio.
cool niche that you've identified.
Right.
And obviously you're talking to studios and they're showing interest. So your validation is there.
Yeah.
I'm also sure you've landed your funding. So pretty cool that you shared this with us. I know you couldn't share it all, but for all that you did, thank you so much. Thought we could bring this up to a wrap. Any last questions?
The thing that like is interesting, right, is like being able to like the tech, right, is super interesting because there are so many problems they could solve, right, that aren't just that niche. And that's what like me as this, a developer am excited about. It's like you could use it for, QA, you could use it for level tuning, like all that kind of stuff, right? So that's why like I'm super interested in like hearing more about like just, the tech and the possibilities, right? Because there are so many problems to solve for studios, and this is one example of that.
Yes.
But there's obviously like kind of endless potential. So
exactly. So thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. And yes, me and Jason have Matt have talked a lot about this. And every studio, I think, will be using this in a little different way, right? Obviously, we have an idea of how players we want to use it, but at the end of the day, I think it's going to be interesting to see, as this control of AI gets put to studios, what studios will end up using it for. And I think it's really, really cool what we're starting to see right now. I think I should, instead of just being all about excitement and stuff, we are Evil Incorporated, right? What is the downside to this? I guess I should end this on a note as well. I need to be cognizant of, there are a lot of folks who are concerned that, the way the studios are using some of these AI technologies would, I guess, have them hire, fewer folks, right, for some positions. And we're starting to see this where, studios are having lower headcounts. And I guess this would be my opinion on it. As long as you like making games, as a person, you like making games, you've been working in the game industry before, there is a way for you to learn and adapt that fits in with all these AI technologies. There's a way, if you're willing to learn, I think one of the most important things you can do is always try to learn, always try to keep learning. And even though there's a concern that maybe for making games, maybe you can use less people now because of AI, at the end of the day, AI cannot replace game development. So for people who are maybe concerned about how they fit in, I would say is keep an open mind. Try to learn, because at the end of the day, even us, we'll need to hire people that have experience making games. We have people that we have hired that have experience making games. There'll always be a place for someone at a studio who likes to make games, but you will just need to learn new skills. So as long as you're open to learning new skills, I hope you are not so concerned about where things are going in the industry. And I just wanted to leave it with that note that just try to learn how to adapt.
That's a wonderful note to end on. Thank you for that. That's going to be the heading of your post when I make it. Thank you everyone for joining.